So good afternoon, Hammers United. Tross, Joint Secretary, as you know. Thought I'd take this opportunity on a Sunday afternoon after doing a little bit of Little League this morning with my under-14s to give you an update as to where we are currently, what's going on a few of the things that we're driving forward and looking to achieve for you. So firstly, I'd like to touch on the new supporters board or new supporters committee that we're working on. As you're probably aware, we're in extensive communication at the moment with a number of other independent supporters groups, and we've been out and spoken to a number of key influencers across the independent support as well, and we're actually making some really good progress as to creating a new independent supporters committee. We've been working very closely with the FSA to make that happen. They've been great, and I'd like to think that by the time we get to the end of next week, we should have something that can go up in front of the club, which will present a golden opportunity actually for them to come and meet a construct that very much has been built by the fans, for the fans, so they can hear exactly how we feel and a lot of the things that we'd like to see in and around fan engagement and improving the experience for West Ham supporters as a collective. And that's very much in line with the FSA's tiered model, whereby you've got your kind of supporters groups and you've got your bigger branch of groups looking to engage directly with the club. So we're very excited as to what can happen there and the progress that's being made. So watch this space and we'll keep updating you as and when that evolves. The other thing that we can't obviously avoid this week has been David Sullivan's TalkSport broadcast. I think everybody's heard that. I'm not going to go over it again because it makes me a little bit angry. It makes him depressed, I know, but it makes me a bit angry after being depressed. But I think what most of us have learned from that, and definitely seems to be the feeling, is that there really isn't very much money around, which surprises me, seeing as we're 10 years into that tenure now, and an awful lot of money has been loaned, a lot of money's been spent, a lot of business decisions have been made, but we apparently appear to be skint, despite the fact that we take hundreds of millions in Premiership TV revenue, and we've probably got the cheapest cost for a ground inside the Premiership. But what we washed up out of that is that we seem to be struggling to be able to afford to go to Everton in the next round of the Cup, which is a cost of about 50 grand apparently, according to David Sullivan. And in that regard, you may have seen some very funny pieces that are knocking around on the internet and on Twitter with GoFundMe pages and the like. On a more serious note, Hammers United have written to the club. We've written directly to the CFO at the club to ask him if it would be of assistance if us, in conjunction with the Hornchurch coach, would look to lay on coach travel for the players so that we could get them to that cup game, and we'll update you as and when we receive a response back from the club. But you know, it's a bit frustrating. It would seem off the back of that interview that the man in the chair for us, David Sullivan, is saying, well, look, you know, these are the players that I can provide for David Sullivan tomorrow. Sorry, for David Moyes tomorrow. God, could you imagine if he actually managed a team? That'd be dreadful. But although maybe he'd want to. But the players that he'd like to provide for David Moyes apparently wants no part of. He set out the players that he wants, David Moyes, that he believes he can achieve the success that he set out to achieve when he came back, whatever you may think of the man. That was his vision. He's asked for players. We don't appear to want to be, we're not willing to pay the going rate for those players. We seem to feel that some of the prices being mentioned are over the top. Doesn't seem to be much conversation that the players may not want to join us for a host of other reasons, like introspection on the club. And there seems to be some challenges there in trying to buy players and get them over the line. I'm sure none of the clubs are looking at our payment record, our payment history, when it comes down to paying our outstanding bills for players we already owe. Haller being a prime example, where his former club has to chase us, it would seem, through arbitrary bodies to get money back. Anyway, David's depressed. David Sullivan, that is, as I highlighted, try being us, mate. Try being us. It's a whole new level of depression being us following West Ham these days. It hurts. It really does hurt. But you know, never to be outdone. It would seem that David Sullivan says his bit on TalkSport, and Karen decides to chip in again on her Sun column. And it's been mentioned a number of times that people don't really want that Sun column running. My view is I feel you've got an amazing opportunity, a great job at West Ham to look to drive us forward and deliver a vision. God knows what that vision is. I think him and you are the only people that do. but the vision of whatever you had for whatever West Ham could be, that's the role. It's a highly paid job at the top of the tree. But it would seem that having this column in the Sun fits in with your bigger, broader brand Karen Brady image. It's all I can deduce, really. I would suggest that we've not perhaps learnt from the Leicester experience, where Leicester refused to sell us players, refused to let our directors into the directors' lounge, and had a whole lot of inter-club hostility with us and Leicester, a club we've never really had any beef with historically, for as far as I can remember, in regards to the pitch anyway. But I'll draw back a couple of statements, actually. I remember when Karen did her promotional video, when we looked to leave the Boleyn and go over to the Olympic Stadium. And her words were, when I said you could trust us, and you knew you could trust us. I'll repeat that, right? Look it up, it's around, it's kicking about the internet, but I'll repeat it. When I said you could trust us, and you knew you could trust us. Well, I wonder how many of our members here at Hammers United, actually across the broader West Ham supporter base, actually trust you very much at the moment. You know, I don't understand why you need to be doing this column. I feel that you have got more than enough cut out at West Ham that's being under-delivered on. I don't feel that you should be looking to take on these additional responsibilities that you have. You should knuckle down on the main job, you know, which is West Ham. I don't think you've got anything that pays you more than this club currently pays you. And I'd like to think that you'd knuckle down and do that job perhaps well. And if that job was done very well and you were delivering on some of the promises that you made, well, then if you want to go and take columns and have opinion, that's great. But to start getting stuck into a club like Hull, who ultimately, for those who know, are probably only panicking. The reason they probably didn't look to go down that route was because you may have seen Leyton Orient got absolutely clobbered financially for not going down that route when they were looking to do the same thing with Tottenham. And that's probably where that lives, where that comes from, etc. So there's nothing to be gained for a club like West Ham for bashing Hull and starting to try and pick holes in Hull for the decisions they've made. You know, if there are issues, broader issues that need to be taken up, let's be professional as a club. Let's take them up privately. Let's speak to the league. Let's speak to the clubs. But let's keep it out of the tabloid press. It's not really necessary, is it? And I'll perhaps remind you again of another statement that you made beforehand, that was, we will provide on the pitch the best team possible for our manager to go out there and win things. Let's do that one again as well, shall we? We will provide on the pitch the best team possible for our manager to go out and win things. Slight suggestion, instead of writing a column at the Sun, why not work with David Sullivan, who we all know is very, very depressed and struggling terribly at the moment to try and deliver on your promise. You know, maybe some collective thinking around there instead of writing for the tabloid press in your column is where your head should be, focusing on the actual job that pays the big bills. So that's pretty much on that front. David Gold, obviously, as I've said beforehand, I don't know what David Gold must be thinking, despite everybody's feelings on the Gold-Sullivan-Brady out piece, which we know was a massive Twitter push again during the course of the week after those comments. You know, I do believe that David Gold is a real West Ham fan. You know, you haven't seen like Karen and like David Sullivan. You haven't seen David Gold in a Birmingham shirt, sprawled over anything or doing whatever, you know, flashing off with his motor in front of his nice house, etc. The man's a West Ham fan. You know, if I understand things correctly, he's got a replica FA Cup, the claret and blue ribbons on it. You know, he's got a picture up on his wall of Vaz Tay scoring that goal that took us back up into the Premiership. So, you know, he's a fan. His association with West Ham predates anybody else's. He goes back years. He lived across the road. I can't believe for a minute that David Gold is looking at where we are as a club and thinking that's what's being delivered. You know, I don't believe David Gold could go, yeah, I'm happy. You know, we won't know that. Of course we won't know that. But I can't believe David Gold's happy. And I think he must be tearing, he'll end up looking like me, tearing his hair out, you know, with these constant statements and things in the tabloid press. Let's just focus and double down on getting the job done, West Ham, mate. Then I wanted to talk about season ticket renewals, actually, which is something I feel has been overlooked by a lot of people. As you'll know, season ticket renewals, date closed, everybody renewed who wanted to renew, and there was a statement that I read on the club's website, which actually, surprisingly, annoyed me. And it annoyed me because it says, isn't it great that we've got 88% renewals in the current climate? You know, isn't that great? You know, given everything that's going on. Well, actually, that's not. And what I'd ask people, I mentioned it on something I did, I think last week. I asked people to think for a minute, you know, because sometimes when you play with numbers and you mess about with the metrics, you can soften messages, and I think people can be very good at that. You know, some people have made livings out of doing it. But 12% of season ticket renewals, you know, that's an awful lot of people. That's over 6,000 West Ham fans have decided not to renew over at the Olympic Stadium. And I think to suggest that the reason 6,000 people haven't renewed is just because of COVID is a little bit convenient for me, I'm afraid, a little bit too convenient. And I'd like to understand, I'd like to hear, and I'll be reaching out to the club as well, so it's fair, but I'd like to understand what was done for those 6,000 people when they went to look to leave. Because, for instance, I'll give you an example. I've more subscriptions to newspapers and online media than I care to count. And I cancelled one of them about 2.5-3 months ago. And I cancelled it, and I was pursued relentlessly by the media outlet in question. 8-9 times they called me up. They offered me 3 months for free. They didn't want me to leave. I was only spending £8 a month. £8 a month, and that's what they were doing. So I'd like to know what West Ham did. I'd like to hear from you if you were one of those season ticket holders who decided you've had enough, I'd like to know the reasons why, and I'd like to understand what the club tried to do to keep you and get you to retain your season ticket. And just for context, because I think context is important. If this was still the Boleyn, right? If this was still old money West Ham, and we were at the Boleyn, if you were standing in the centre circle, let's say it's beneath the lights, and we had Tottenham at home, or Man United at home, right? And it was a bit lively, right? And you looked down and you looked at the Bobby Moore stand, the old South Bank, and you looked around and you looked at the east side, the old Chicken Run, and then you looked up again and you looked into what once was the North Bank, right? Then the Centenary, within the Trevor Brooking stand. Imagine that stand 20 minutes into the game, right? Under the lights, magic atmosphere, you know, we had some great atmospheres under the lights, the Ipswich game and the like, you know. And imagine 20 minutes into the game, that entire stand walked out. You know, kind of disappeared, a bit like in that Avengers Endgame movie I watched with the kids when everyone just disappeared, you know? Imagine if that entire stand just walked out and disappeared in 20 minutes. Because that's what's happened. In fact, it's a bit worse than that. You actually dig down into some of the Chicken Run as well, because it's about 6,200 people, and that stand held, I think, just under 6,000, 5,900 and something after it was rebuilt. You know, that's how many people have walked away from West Ham. And I think that's tragic. And I want to understand why. So if you're a season ticket holder that's given up your season ticket and you're a Hammers United member, or if you're watching this and you're not a member, please join us. But I'd like to know why you've left. I'd like you to send us a few lines, send us an email. You get the email address on the website, www.hammersunited.com. Or you can send, this will go up on the Facebook page, leave a message underneath here. But ideally send us an email through. I would love to understand why you left, the reasons why you gave up your ticket, and I'd like to know what the club looked to do to keep you there, you know, and I'd like to understand how long you've had that ticket, why you decided to walk away, you know, what your decisions were, because I'm not buying into that was just because of COVID that so many of these people walked away. You know, it doesn't work for me, and I want to understand why, because I think it's tragic that so many of our fans appear to be walking away, and that's one of the main reasons I got involved in Hammers United. Moving on from that, talking about, you would have seen we've carried out a number of protests. Those protests you would have seen at Newcastle for the first home game of the season. Lovely sunny day. We went down to the gates. We made sure that we were compliant on the numbers. Some really good solid West Ham came down to the gates with us, which was great. It was also really nice to see, Dave, and we saw Wayne. You know, we saw Cam, we saw Greg, and a few others down there. You know, Cameron. It was really good. You know, just see a load of West Ham down there, because those guys go down there all the time. You know, great credit to them. But we went down and we gave the coach a great clap when it came in, which was brilliant. You know, and Trevor Brooking gave us a wave, and I think the directors came in through a different entrance and stuff, and it was good. You know, I suppose the only low light really, I think, Moose from TalkSport, who, you know, we've got a kind of love-hate relationship with. Drove past, one hand on the wheel, camera out the window, taking pictures, which I think he threw up on Twitter. You know, probably in a bit of a hurry on the way to his next pie and mash, you know. But yeah, it's so we did that one, and then there was the one after that, which was Charlton, and Bubbles and I went down and did that one at Charlton, and the two of us, and we took an independent observer with us from the FSA, which was great, just to make sure that was all good. And yeah, you know, it was we kind of did that, and then the boys went over to Arsenal. Sanjay and I think it was Bubbles and Andy Mack went over to the Arsenal, and we did Hull. And today the guys will do Wolves. You know, and people have said, well, why are you protesting at an empty stadium? This is where I'm getting to, really. You know, because we had loads of plaudits, keep up the good work, etc. But some people have asked why, and the reason why simply is, at the moment in the current climate, what we don't want to do is encourage people to go out and just protest randomly in a manner that's not safe, in a manner that's, you know, could get our members in trouble, could get the health consequences that come with it by not executing and delivering properly. You know, we want to make sure that we're protesting on behalf of our members, doing what they've asked us to do, but at the same time, we're making sure that we're doing it in a sensible fashion so that it's controlled, so that we're compliant with the legislation, we're compliant with the law, but we're also making sure that there's no social risk, because we do take our social responsibility here seriously at Hammers United. And I think that's very important to say. So that's why we're doing it, and there's plenty more of those that are coming along in the pipeline, etc. And to that end, membership, fantastic. Membership has now surpassed 16,000 members. God, it seems like yesterday that there was, you know, a handful of guys in a pub, and then a few more in a club, and then there was a few hundred, then there was a couple of thousand, and now there's 16,000 of us, which is incredible. And I can't begin to tell you how grateful I am to all of you as members for joining, for the fantastic committee that we have, and the friends of the committee, our think tank, Friends of Hammers United, and the great work that they do to help us build what we've built so far for the West Ham family. You know, I think it's great. In regard to complaints, there's still a number of complaints coming in after the season ticket window is closed. People are not happy with their seating, not getting the answers that they want. If you have reached out to the ticket office, and this is very important, if you've reached out to the ticket office and you've got a response from the ticket office and you're not happy with that and you'd like to escalate it and take it to the next stage, feel free to reach out to us. We've got open dialogue with some senior people at West Ham who have been fantastic, actually, in looking to remediate and look to assist and drive a positive outcome for everybody that we've passed their way. I think there's one exception at the moment which is still being worked on, but we've got a few more to pass over. But everybody that we've looked to try and help so far, we've been able to, and we've been able to get to a good resolution. So we'll keep doing that, keep forwarding them, but please make sure the process is go to the ticket office first, go to the club first. If you can't get satisfaction with the ticket office and the club, then come to us. We'll look to escalate and see if we can help. That then brings me on to just a little gripe, just a small one. In and around the forum and the Facebook page, guys, please, we are all volunteers. We're just solid West Ham fans like you. We give up our free time to do it. Make our lives as easy as you can. Phil String, who's a bit of a legend, was our first chairman. Phil Stringfellow, great chat. Does an awful lot of moderating for us in the background. Unsung hero, very much like Lee Rogers, with all the great work they do behind the scenes. I'd really appreciate it if we could just you to stand by Phil's phrase, stay classy, yeah, and leave the C-bombs at home. It makes his life a lot easier having it just go for all the rigmarole in the background, you know. And again, invite your friends, invite your family, make sure they're West Ham, so we don't have to look to regulate that and then under-explain things as people are pushing forward. But yeah, great stuff there. Let's just try and keep that going. And then finally, two things I think you'll be very interested in, actually. The first one is there's going to be a great Hammers United survey. So going back to what we were saying about now having a membership of 16,000 people, for us, having that many members is amazing. But what we need to do, we need to make sure that there's an we need to make sure the message is solid going out to everybody, right? Everybody knows that what we're looking to do is unequivocally the correct messaging from our members. So we want to ask you guys a number of questions, how you feel about where things are currently, where they are today, what your opinions are, what your engagement level is with the club. Are you a season ticket holder? Have you given your season ticket up? Are you on the waiting list? When was the last time? When was the last good experience you had? Bad experience? How happy are you? And a whole host of questions. And what's really important about this survey is for you to take part in it we're going to need to make sure we've got your up-to-date email address. So please send us your up-to-date email address so we've got that on file. Just go onto hammersunited.com, www.hammersunited.com, hit your email over on the email button, give us an update, make sure we've got the latest email address for you that we can sanity check in case it's changed. Just send it through to us anyway, it's the right way forward. And then we can make sure that you'll go on that list when that survey goes out. Following up from that, something else that's very important, protest. As we were talking about the protests earlier, I've been working, as of a number of other people on the committee, with a number of our legal representatives and advisors for a good period of time, making sure that everything we do is in lockstep with the current legislation. And we've been inundated with requests for another mass protest similar to the stroll we did along the Greenway when we took 8,500 fans up to the edge of the ground and voiced our discontent at the current situation we find ourselves in as a club. So the latest update is, and I'll repeat it so we've got absolute clarity on it, we now know that legally we believe we have the right to protest. Okay, we've examined it, we've worked with some leading London law firms. We've explored what Extinction Rebellion have done, what Black Lives Matter have done. You've seen there was another protest with 15,000 people yesterday in London, which was chaos, mass disorder. But what we're looking to do is explore, now that we know that we've got the legal right to protest, we're going to explore what a risk assessment would look like, take on board all the health connotations and all the aspects for it, what that will mean socially, make sure we're being socially responsible, respectful of the COVID guidelines to make sure we're in line with those. We'll look to work with the relative councils to be able to deliver that risk assessment. And once we've got those updates, we'll come back to you. But the big story here is that we do now believe that we have the legal right for mass protest again. So watch this space on that front over the next week or two as we look to move forward. The final thing that I'd like to say is that you'll see over the course of this week and into the beginning of next week, there'll be a number of Hammers United panels where we're asking a number of, I suppose you could say, experienced, solid, stellar West Ham fans and other influencers across the fan base to come onto a panel hosted by people we all know, love and trust, and, help to understand how they currently feel about West Ham, the current state of play, and start understanding in a much broader context what they're hearing, not just my voice. You're bored with my voice already, probably my shiny head burning into your eyes every week or so. But we'll look to run those next week with some guys from our committee and some other influential people across the West Ham fan base, people that we all know, people that we all respect. And it'll be interesting to get a number of those opinions and get a lot of that feedback in. So keep your eye open for that. Again, make sure that if you're watching this and you're not a member of Hammers United already, www.hammersunited.com, jump on the website. We'd love to have you on board. And please ensure, if you are a member and you're watching this, that we've got your up-to-date email address on file. Really important for that survey. Really important to make sure that you've got the detail to see some of this panel stuff that we've got coming up. And of course, as we're looking to move forward with those all-important protest updates, you're going to want to know that you're getting those. Thank you very much. That's pretty much everything for me. I was thrilled today. My under-14s won 10-1 in the Cup, which we got to the final of last year. So really, really good start. Looking forward to the Wolves game tonight. If you're watching this on Monday, you'll know the result already. I'm not going to do predictions. It's not my bag. It's not what you watch me for. But I will say all the very best to the team tonight. All the best to Moisey. Let's go out there and give a really good account of ourselves, lads. We know we're a bit thin on the ground, but let's go in there and see what we can do. Come on, you odds.